Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Versus Podcast, a podcast about scripture and sports. My name is Slayton Hewish. I am the host of this podcast. If you are here, it is probably because you are a first time listener and you were told to come listen to the prologue. If that is the case, welcome. Without further ado, I'm just going to get right into it. Like I said, my name is Slayton Hewish. I'm the host of this podcast. A little bit about myself. I am from Arizona, born and raised in Mesa, Arizona. I am currently living in Utah with my lovely wife. And, two things that are constantly on my mind that I'm always thinking about are scripture and sports. Those are two of the biggest passions of my life. And I figured, why not make a podcast about it? Why not let some of my thoughts out? And that's kind of what inspired me to make this. It was to have an outlet to share what I'm learning, what I'm feeling, and hopefully share it with an audience. Versus is kind of a play on words. Versus, obviously, scripturally, verses as in a block of scripture in a verse. But then also verses in the sports contest where you have two teams going up against each other, you have verses. And so it's kind of a play on words, has a double meaning. And so if that doesn't tell you about what this podcast is going to be about, well, I don't know how else to tell you. So this podcast for the structure is going to have a focus of verses for the scripture and verses for the sports. So this is the prologue. After this, we'll have 1 point episode number, and all the ones titled 1 are going to be the verses that relate to scripture, and then all the ones that are 2 point whatever are going to relate to the sports. So if you like my podcast and you strictly just want to listen to one, you can filter them that way. If you like both, thank you. I appreciate that. You can also just listen to them chronologically as they post. So soon, in the coming days, there will be the first upload for the scripture following the sports. And I'll try to alternate that. One scripture, one sports. What can you expect from each of these episodes? So the verses, the scripture side, you can expect discussions based on scripture, discussing the philosophies of scripture is what I hope to do. Specifically, the scripture from a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints canon. The canon of the Latter-day Saints includes the Bible, the Old and the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, and also messages from our modern day church leaders, both the Quorum of the 12 and the First Presidency, as well as the other general auxiliary leaders of the church. And you'll get a good taste of that, as the first episode is actually a general conference recap from the October 2024 General Conference. I almost forgot what month. So expect something like that. Other episodes may include a devotional. Maybe there's a verse that really stood out to me, and maybe I want to pour a little bit of my heart and soul into it and make it more like a devotional. I'm also planning to have special guests on, and we discuss faith and how to navigate faith crises and why people choose to believe when there's a lot of reasons not to. So, and the focus on the Latter-day Saint canon has not given it away. Yes, I am an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I love messages that talk about Jesus. So sometimes it won't even be from a Latter-day Saint canon. Sometimes we might just be speaking Jesus. And I hope everybody's okay with that. We all could use a little bit more Jesus. So again, that's one of the reasons why I'm here. And then now as we transition away from the scripture more to the sports, the other half of this podcast, obviously it's going to be about sports. Again, growing up in Arizona, a lot of the sports I want to focus on are Valley-centric sports. So a lot of the professional sports teams from the state of Arizona, as well as the colleges of Arizona, in particular Arizona State University, which is where my allegiance lies. It's not going to just be an Arizona sports talk podcast. I will also cover some national news, particularly with the sports that either have big news, something, for example, like NBA free agency, or a sport that is in season. So there will be some national news, but again, I will mainly cater it to the teams that I like because it's my podcast. So, and then I may also have some roundtable discussions and talks from fellow fans, maybe, and discuss the topics of the day or maybe even the week. Basically, with sports, just expect sports talk. Expect some fiery opinions, expect some cool, maybe some news to be shared on here. I mean, I'm not a journalist, but I might share news from other people. So that's what to expect from the Verse Us. That is my hope for this podcast. I really have three hopes. One is an overall, and then one is for each of the subtopics from the podcast. The main overall hope for me is I can let these feelings out and share them, hopefully articulately, and kind of get over my fear of being in the public square. This is something I've wanted to do for a few years, and I've kind of been afraid to like put my voice out there and share what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. And I'm at a point where I'm like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. So I'm going to send it. And whoever supports me along this ride, I'm super, super grateful for. Again, my hope is that I can just have fun with it and grow to be more confident in sharing my thoughts about things such as sports and religion, which can be a little divisive. But again, I hope this is a place that is not and is more informative and maybe even enjoyable. Maybe the other purpose and hope I have for the Verse Says, specifically the scriptural side, is I hope that people listening, including myself, are uplifted, they are enlightened, as well as maybe question some things that they're doing, maybe question some of their traditions, some of their practices, and think, man, how can I do this in a higher and holier way? How can I become closer to God and Jesus based off what I've heard here today? And so that's kind of what I hope you take away there is you feel enlightened. And then from the sports, I hope you get jacked up. Okay, I hope it sparks good questions in your mind. I hope it sparks good internal debate. Maybe you take what you hear on this and you share it with your friends, and just continue to create a stir of sports talk, honest and real sports talk in a world where a lot of sports commentary is about engagement farming and is about picking out the popular teams and not too worried about being accurate. But that's kind of my hope. My hope for the sports side is to bring real and honest commentary. Sports as well, be bring a little bit more fire in your heart to the teams that you love. That is the prologue of the Versus podcast, a scripture and sports podcast with Slayton Hewish. If you want to go ahead and listen to the other clips, you're more than welcome to do so. If you want to skip the prologue and just jump into the other ones and kind of be confused, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Feel free to give me a follow on all platforms that you find this. Find new uploads regularly. Hopefully as I get into this more, I can maybe develop more of a routine and give you guys a more exact answer of when I'll be uploading. But as for now, I'm just going to stick with a vague term of regularly. And again, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.